Parasite. Vanessa didn't even bother to lower her voice. Her suitcase wheels rattled across the foyer tile as if they were applauding her insult. Maybe when we're back, you'll have finally figured out where you actually belong. My father didn't meet my eyes. We've been more than generous, he said, checking his watch like kindness had an expiration date. Most parents wouldn't let a grown daughter freeload this long. I stood in the kitchen threshold with a cooling cup of coffee and a heat in my chest I couldn't swallow down. This is my home, I said, calm on the outside, burning on the inside. Mom left it to me. You both know that. Vanessa threw her head back in theatrical disbelief. Frank, please. The fairy tale again? My father's jaw worked like a stuck hinge. Your mother wanted a family under one roof, not a throne room for you to strut around in. He grabbed his suitcase handle. We'll miss our flight. Cassie's already in the car, the door shut. Silence surged through the house like a tide pulling out. I listened to the echo of their departure move up the carved staircase, past the stained glass transom that throws rainbows across the landing at exactly 4 p.m. Through the parlor where sunlight curls around the velvet settee, my mother rescued from a salvage shop. This was not just square footage. This was a biography written in wood and glass. I'm Samra Wells, 24. I own this house. On paper, in memory, in promise. My mother, Caroline Wells, put the deed in a trust when chemo made calendars look slippery. She chose me as beneficiary. She gave my father a lifetime right to stay, as long as he respected what she built and who she chose to inherit it. Respect. The one thing that keeps going missing around here. Through the bay window, I watched their car creep down the drive. Vanessa's sunglasses glinting in the front seat. Cassie, 16, all screen glow and silence in the back. 10 days in the Bahamas. 10 days I wasn't invited to. 10 days to either stew or act. My phone chimed. An email, Vanessa to my father, with me accidentally copied. Frank, I spoke with Harold. When we're back, we can proceed with having Samra legally removed. He says her Caroline wanted this story won't stand without the original trust papers. The coffee turned to iron in my stomach. Harold, original documents, removed. Stared around the kitchen. My mother had measured with blue tape and love. The walnut counters she restored. The schoolhouse pendants she insisted were period correct. My throat tightened. I could hear her voice describing sash weights and plaster keys and the thrill of finding hidden trim behind drywall. This Queen Anne, built 1887, rescued as a foreclosure when I was 7, was her cathedral. We learned history by scraping it, sanded it down to beauty, breathed in varnish and dust and joy. My father tolerated her devotion like you tolerate rain on a wedding day. He called the work the hobby. She called it a promise. When the scans came back cruel, she got practical. Attorneys, a trust. Plain language instructions to me, on couch nights when ginger tea was all she could stomach. It's yours, Sam, she'd say, tracing the balusters like counting prayer beads. Your father can stay while he honors that truth. The house itself, its bones, are your responsibility. Promise you'll protect it, I promised. A year after she died, my father met Vanessa at a corporate mixer. 6 months later, Vanessa and Cassie moved in with a decorator's idea of modern, all sharp angles and shiny brass that clashed with hand-cut millwork. I tried. Finals, grief, the ache of an empty chair at the dining table. I chose harmony over every instinct to push back. Harmony did not choose me back. The digs sharpened. My place at the table blurred. I became a guest with chores. When I cited the trust, my father's warmth shut off like a light. The living come first, he'd say, as if the dead had never built the living a home. The car turned the corner and vanished. Hurt rose like a bruise. So did something steadier. Enough. I started in the room that used to be my mother's library and is now my father's office. A neatness that wasn't hers, binders with labels that weren't her hand. It felt wrong to hesitate at a door in a house that bears my surname, but I did. Then I stepped in, desk drawers, staples, paid bills, a framed photo from a family picnic. Vanessa, my father, Cassie. My face was conspicuously missing, Filing cabinet, rows of folders in Vanessa's delicate, controlling script. Behind the last hanging folder in the bottom drawer, my finger brushed an envelope fat with paper. Wells House, legal. I took a breath and slid the contents onto the desk. Copies of the trust, I knew. My name as beneficiary. My father's right to live here conditioned on basic decency and acknowledgement of my title. Then newer correspondence, all bristling with a name. Harold Brennan, real estate attorney. Strategies. Invalidate outdated trust. Establish clear title in Frank's name. Cold legal verbs with hot intent. A sticky note in my father's tight handwriting. Original trust docs in Caroline's old lockbox. Sam might have key. The room tilted, then steadied. Original documents. Sam might have key. They weren't just denying my ownership. They were hunting the one thing that proved it, likely to make it disappear. I pressed my palms flat to the desk until the tremor stopped. Then I gathered everything and went upstairs to my room, to the back of the closet, to a small fireproof safe that smells faintly of cedar and secrets. The key was on the chain my mother pressed into my hand the week before her last hospital stay. Inside, the original trust, exactly where she told me to keep it. And a sealed envelope I'd never had the courage to open. On the front, in her looping script, in case of disputes. My fingers shook as I broke the seal. A letter. A business card. My darling Samra, if you're reading this, your father has forgotten what he promised me. I hoped he'd honor my wishes. I planned for the possibility he wouldn't. Eliza Montgomery is the trust administrator with the power to enforce the terms. The house is yours. Do not let anyone convince you otherwise. All my love, Mom. Tears came hot and sudden, not because I doubted the law, but because my mother had known I'd need proof against the man who taught me to ride a bike. Love, prepackaged with armor, relief should have rushed in. Instead, grief did. The father I thought was at least decent in the end had turned strategist against me. The stepmother who said family with a smile was CCing lawyers behind my back. I put everything back in the safe, closed it gently, sat on the edge of my bed, and stared at the ceiling rows my mother had restored with dental tools and patience. 10 days, a ticking clock, a line I could no longer step back from. I dialed the number on Eliza Montgomery's card. Ms. Montgomery, I'm Samra Wells, Caroline's daughter. I've been waiting to hear from you, she said, voice steady and warm, a voice that knows rules and remembers people. Come by this afternoon. Bring what you have. Her office downtown felt like a judge's chambers softened by good tea. Silver hair, clear eyes, and the kind of note-taking that makes you feel seen and protected at the same time. She read the trust. She read the emails. She read the sticky note twice. Caroline was thorough, she said, tapping the margin where my name sits above my father's. Your father's right to occupy is contingent on very specific behavior. Acknowledge your ownership. Preserve your rights and refrain from creating a hostile environment. Based on what you've shown me, he's crossed those lines. So what does that mean? My voice sounded small and tired to my own ears. It means you're not powerless. As administrator, I can enforce the terms, up to removing his right to live there if he's in material breach. She set down her pen. We can start with a formal notice reminding him of his obligations. Sometimes firm paper prevents a courtroom, I exhaled, the first clean breath all day. I don't want scorched earth, I said. I want him to stop pretending this isn't mine. I want the insults to stop. I want to live in my house without getting frozen out of dinner. Then we begin with the letter, she said. And Samra, document everything from now on. I left with a stamped envelope addressed to my father, a plan that felt both principled and merciful, and a spine a few degrees straighter. Back home, the house hummed the way old houses do when the AC kicks on and the walls hold more than air. My phone buzzed, a text from Vanessa. We need to discuss your behavior while we're away. Frank is very upset. Expect changes when we return. Attached, a photo of the office desk. Drawers not quite the way I'd left them. Cameras, of course. My throat tightened. Seconds later, an email from my father. I'm disappointed in your invasion of privacy. Your behavior proves you're not responsible enough for home ownership. We'll be consulting our attorney upon return. Consulting. Upon return. They were accelerating. I forwarded both to Eliza. Her reply came fast. This suggests they won't respond to a courtesy letter. We may need to enforce the trust immediately. The words turned the floor under me from wood to rope bridge. I didn't answer right away. I walked the house instead, hand on the walnut rail my mother oiled every spring, eyes on the stained glass that throws sunrise like confetti across the landing. Every corner whispered her name. Another ding. A new email. Harold Brennan in my inbox now. Ms. Wells, I represent Frank and Vanessa Wells regarding the property at 1847 Chestnut Avenue. Cease direct contact with my clients. All communication should go through my office. We are preparing legal action regarding your claims, as if my birthright were a rumor. I stared at the screen until the words stopped swimming. I had chosen measured steps. They had chosen a sprint. The next morning I call. Yes, Eliza said gently. He didn't. That's a separate breach, one with teeth. The house seemed to exhale around me, as though the walls had been holding their breath since the wedding photos. There's more, she added. Our office held a sealed letter from your mother to be opened if that clause was violated. You should read it yourself. I drove downtown with the kind of focus you get right before a storm hits. The sky looks clean, the light too bright, and you know what's coming anyway. Eliza placed the envelope in my hands and left me alone. My mother's handwriting tumbled across the page like it always had. She explained what my father never understood. The purchase and restoration weren't funded by a paycheck alone but by her inheritance, gifted under a condition that the property remain with blood descendants. My father's claim existed only because she allowed him to live here in grace. He had already spent that grace. Her final line cut through my shock like a hand squeezing mine. Stand firm. You are stronger than you know. I didn't realize I was crying until a tear hit the page and made the ink bloom. On the drive home, the city felt different. Same skyline, new map. We shifted strategy. Instead of a gentle reminder backed by a temporary order, Eliza prepared filings to terminate my father's occupancy rights entirely. Denial of my ownership. Hostile environment. Conspiracy to invalidate the trust. Violation of the remarriage clause. Misuse of household funds. Then the phone rang again, from a number I didn't recognize. Is this Samra? A hesitant, younger voice. It's Cassie, I blinked. Cassie, are you okay? I'm calling from the hotel phone. I didn't want them to see. Her voice tightened. I heard them fighting. They said their lawyer can win if they make you look unstable. My mom mentioned planting something in your room. I don't know what. It sounded bad. The air left my lungs in one slow rush. Manufactured evidence, weaponized lies. Thank you for telling me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady so she could hear the gratitude and not the quake beneath it. There was a pause on her end, the quiet of a kid realizing she's been fed a story. Is it true? That the house is actually yours? Yes, I said simply. It always has been. Another silence. Smaller this time. They never told me that. Her voice softened. I'm sorry for everything. After we hung up, I called Eliza immediately. They're planning to stage something when they get back. Then we tighten the order, she replied, already moving 3 steps ahead. No access without a court-appointed supervisor, and we'll arrange retrieval of their belongings under oversight. We won't give them the chance to contaminate the record or your home. Minutes later, my father called me himself. His tone was sugared at the edges, the way you talk when you want someone to put their guard down. Samara, he began, using the longer version of my name like it might unlock a gentler timeline. We've been thinking. Vanessa and I, we regret our words. Let's have a family meeting when we're back, talk things through. A week ago, I would have grabbed that scrap of peace and called it progress. Now, after Cassie's warning, I heard the trap springs creaking. That sounds fair, I said, matching his practiced warmth with my own steady blandness. We'll talk when you're back. As soon as I ended the call, I emailed Eliza. They'll try to get inside, I wrote. I agreed to a meeting. We should be ready on the day. We will be, she replied. Sheriff's deputy will be present to serve the order. I will attend in person. Court representative will document. The plan was clinical. The feeling was not. On the morning of their return, I packed an overnight bag and stepped across the street to a neighbor's porch with a clear view of the front steps. The house stood there, calm, composed, unapologetically itself, sunlight catching the stained glass like a wink. Official cars eased to a stop along the curb. The deputy adjusted his hat. Eliza checked her folder. The court observer lifted his camera and took a time-stamped photo of the door. A taxi rounded the corner and pulled up to the curb. My father stepped out, vacation loose until he spotted the law gathered on the lawn. Vanessa slid out behind him, sunglasses swallowing half her face. Cassie lingered in the back, eyes finding mine across the street. She gave the slightest nod, a thread tossed between us and pulled tight. The deputy moved forward. Papers in hand. I didn't need to hear the words to understand what they meant. The turning point had arrived. Enjoying the ride? Subscribe for more true-to-the-bone revenge stories. Comment below. Would you have gone nuclear sooner, or held back like I did? And if Chapter 2 kept you hooked, tap like. It really helps the channel. The deputy's voice carried, calm but final, as he handed my father the official order. My father's face flushed red, his shoulders stiffening like a man about to charge a wall. Vanessa ripped off her sunglasses, shouting words I couldn't hear but could read in the sharp slice of her mouth. The court observer took photos, one after another, preserving every flicker of rage for the record. And then, silence. The kind that follows when the fight drains out because the battlefield isn't yours anymore. My father sank onto one of their suitcases, the papers trembling in his hands. Vanessa's fury turned inward at him. Their united front splintered in front of my eyes. Eliza stepped forward and gave them the final blow, my mother's sealed letter. She explained the truth. The inheritance that had funded the house, the lineage of ownership through blood descendants, the trust's clear provisions my father had trampled. I will never forget his face. All the indignation melted into something smaller. Disbelief? Defeat? Maybe even shame. The house had never been his. Not in money. Not in law. Not in spirit. That moment wasn't triumph. It was clarity. The weeks after were practical, almost surgical. The sheriff supervised as my father and Vanessa packed their things. Cassie's belongings, I packed myself, carefully folding her clothes, boxing her books, so she wouldn't have to return to a house now stained with court orders and shouting. They moved into an apartment across town. Communication with my father dwindled to stiff emails about logistics. Vanessa and he fought constantly, Cassie later told me. The bond that had looked so solid crumbled once the prize was gone. But Cassie surprised me. One afternoon, she called from a cafe. Can I come visit sometimes? The house feels more like home than anywhere I've been. Her voice was small, but hopeful. I said yes without hesitation, and slowly, weekend afternoons became sleepovers. 2 girls, sisters technically, though forged through conflict instead of love, finding something like family in the wreckage. My father showed up once. Weeks later, awkward on the porch. I never meant for it to go this far, he said, his voice rough with regret. After your mother died, I couldn't stand that she trusted you with the house, but not me. I looked at him, the man who taught me to balance on a bike, the man who plotted to erase me. It wasn't about trust, Dad. It was about legacy. Mom wanted this house to stay with me and with her bloodline. That wasn't against you. It was for something bigger. He nodded slowly. Too late, I suppose. His eyes lingered on the stained glass window before he left, and for the first time, he looked like a visitor. So I rebuilt. Room by room, board by board. I threw myself into finishing the 3rd-floor restoration my mother never got to complete. Each molding restored, each fixture polished. Felt like a conversation with her, like her hand was still guiding mine. The house has always known who it belonged to, Eliza said when she visited one afternoon. her sharp eyes softening as she looked around. Your mother would be proud. She was right. The revenge wasn't in eviction papers or legal victories. It was in preservation, in holding firm to a promise, in knowing the house and my mother's legacy would live through me. This wasn't just about winning. It was about honoring the past while building my future, exactly as my mother intended. And that's how the story ends. Not with screaming matches, but with a steady truth: the house chose me, because she chose me. So tell me, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have taken the nuclear option sooner or held out like I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. And if this story kept you hooked, don't forget to like this video. It really helps the channel. Make sure to subscribe for more powerful revenge stories just like this one, because sometimes the best revenge is simply standing your ground.